Hello, we are the FOBs bringing to you today information on everything immigration. My name is Elisa Lopez, and along with me is Tecta Hall, Kyle Vo, and Martha Coffey. Enjoy.
My name is Martha Coffey, and I'll be talking about the demographics and social issues that affect immigrants. Millions of immigrants migrate to the United States for economic, social, and financial reasons. According to the Census Bureau, during the last 50 years, the foreign-born population of the United States has undergone dramatic changes in size, origins, and geographical distribution. Foreign-born population makes up about 1 in 8 U.S. residents, mostly immigrants from Latin America and Asia. Persons with no U.S. citizens are referred to as immigrants or foreign-born, and this population includes refugees, people seeking asylum, and permanent residents. Even though most immigrants are low-paid wage workers, they contribute significantly to the economy. It is estimated that there are 11 million illegal immigrants in the United States. Most are between the ages of 25 to 44 years old, and there are slightly more men than women. Newly arrived immigrants face many challenges while in the U.S. Imagine leaving your country of origin and starting all over again in another country, and you do not understand the language or culture. You feel isolated, depressed, and abandoned. Studies have shown that social demographics, like the type of neighborhoods immigrants live in, does influence their access to health benefits and educational opportunities. For the young and middle adults, assimilation can be a stressful and challenging process. They are concerned about access to employment, educational opportunities, and financial stabilities. They want to achieve the American dream. However, when they do not, there is a feeling of abandonment and despair. For example, middle-aged adults turn to alcohol or drugs as a coping mechanism for depression. Positive attitude towards immigrants will help in the assimilation process. In spite of this, immigrants remain resilient and look for support to their extended families and churches to help them navigate their way through the health system and educational systems, because sometimes resources in their native language are not always accessible.
I'm Take the Hall.
Beside many challenges, biological and psychological factors stand as the prominent challenges for the immigrants in the United States. Biological challenges among immigrants constitutes of major diseases like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, AIDS, and high blood pressure. Both cancer and heart disease death rates have been dropping for Hispanics and everyone else. Despite the downward trend among Hispanics, heart disease is the leading cause of death among minorities in the United States. Blacks and Hispanics are more likely to suffer from obesity and hypertension, two of the major risk factors for heart disease. African Americans, Hispanic Latino, American Indians, and some Asian Americans and Native Hawaiians or other Pacific Islanders are at particular high risk for type 2 diabetes. Another biological challenge to immigrant is HIV/AIDS. In the beginning, AIDS affected mostly gay white men, but now it's disproportionately affecting communities of color. 51% of new cases are among blacks and Hispanics. Injection drug use is one of the reasons leading to the spread of the disease among minorities. Despite the fact that there are large numbers of blacks and Hispanics being tested, 1 in 5 living with HIV is unaware of his status. A study about preventing chronic disease (PCD) reported the minorities, particularly African Americans, have high rates of hospitalization due to hypertension, also known as high blood pressure. In the study, researchers reported that the large gap in the rates between races has been found across multiple US states, and they believe that early access to good quality health care could help prevent these high rates of hospitalization.
I am Kyle Vo. Immigrants come from a variety of different cultures, with some being similar to American culture, while many others being radically different. Culturally different or not, immigrants face many of the same problems that are prevalent in American society. Severe or otherwise mundane hindrances may be exacerbated by ineptness in language, a lack of resources, or the unavailability of a network by which to draw support from. Adults in particular are likely to be more vested in their heritage than younger generations. This may produce strain due to the presence of conflicting customs and values. A fair measure of cultural competency and caution should be taken when working with those who have strong ties with their cultural lineage. The melting pot theory refers to a process by which a heterogeneous society becomes more homogeneous through the melding of different cultures into a single uniform entity. It entails one culture being supplemented or inhibited for the acclimation of a new one. This may come through the adoption of names, clothing, language, customs, and beliefs of the dominant culture. The theory itself is generally specific to the assimilation of immigrants into the United States. The melting pot theory is often criticized as an excuse for privileged and dominant members of society to impose their standards on others, whilst at the same time marginalizing those that do not fall in the line. The melting pot theory often neglects the notion that particular groups already have an advantage within a society. Another criticism of the melting pot theory is that even for those who do assimilate, acceptance is not always guaranteed. A person can model themselves after the dominant culture in name, clothing style, language, and still face rejection. In a recent study, unskilled and unemployed Caucasians in Detroit were able to generate a job offer in approximately 91 hours. It took unskilled and unemployed African Americans an average of 167 hours to obtain a similar job offer. Both populations in the study had the same qualifications and were both fairly acclimated to the society they were living in, yet there was a clear favoritism towards one race over another. Contrasting the melting pot theory is the salad bowl theory, a concept that suggests that different cultures can still remain independent whilst intertwined with others. The comparison is that of ingredients in a salad, which still retain their own distinct flavor despite being mixed with other elements. The salad bowl theory is a multiculturalist perspective that asserts that being American is not tied to a single monolithic culture, but rather citizenship and fealty to the United States as a whole. Opponents of the salad bowl theory believe that the concept gives leeway for people not to properly assimilate into the United States. They feel it gives people an option to isolate themselves within their own cultures instead of participating in the more mainstream and prevalent culture. The detractors often see such multiculturalist perspectives as threats to the dominant culture and contend that the American identity must be preserved. Despite being a nation founded by immigrants, the topic of immigration has remained contentious throughout the history of the United States. The lingering fear has been that immigrants will bring crime, steal jobs, overtax welfare systems, and that they will ultimately subvert American culture with their own culture as opposed to assimilating. For those reasons, xenophobia and nativism play a significant role in shaping legislation and attitudes about immigrants. Negative attitudes about immigration may manifest itself in a number of ways, from mild distrust to outright racism and violence. Generally, Americans tend to be unaware of the plight of immigrants, but this does little to create an atmosphere of trust and understanding. It is often the case that immigrants seek help within their own community, only using outside resources for dire circumstances.
Hello, my name is Elisa Lopez, and I will be talking to you about culture and family. For some immigrants, some travel alone or as a group to America in order to better provide for their family. Some leave family, friends, belongings, and work behind them for the possibility of a new life. For some, however, they leave behind their culture. For many immigrants, coming to America reshapes what they believe in. For several immigrants, most choose to speak in their native tongue, participate in religious and cultural practices, and continue to cook traditional dishes. This gives immigrants a way to build connections and feel at home in the new country. When coming to America, immigrants now have to deal with racism, sexism, religious prejudice, which has a detrimental effect on immigrants. Many immigrants are misled into believing that the ideal look in America is being white. They start thinking that lighter skin is good and darker skin is bad, due to the concept of Anglo-Saxon conformity. Out of this thinking and discrimination can affect expecting mothers and their babies. Racial discrimination has been found as a risk factor for expecting mothers and can result in low weight and or premature births among African Americans and Latinos. With this assimilation, there seems to be what is called an immigrant paradox. This occurs between foreign and U.S.-born Latinos, in which foreign-born Latinos tend to have a better physical and mental health than the U.S.-born Latinos. For many issues on health and culture, the more assimilated one is, the more likely they are to suffer from a psychiatric disorder than foreign-born immigrants. The less assimilated and foreign-born are also less likely to use contraceptives than U.S.-born Latinas. This could be attributed to religious beliefs, lack of support from fathers, or lack of knowledge. Another issue that is seen arising is lack of medical care. For many, going to a psychologist is considered shameful or brings shame upon the family. Not only is there shame, but there is fear of deportation, lack of insurance, and money. Shame, embarrassment, language barriers, and religious belief often hinder immigrants from going to a doctor or seeking for help. For many adults, migrating to a new country leads to the loss of companionship, support, and help. Those who are left behind often stay due to illness, old age, or simply because they do not feel the need to leave. For those who do leave, they are left to worry about ill family members or at a loss and grieving for what and who they left behind. For many immigrants, the family unit serves as a stress reliever. Many say that they feel safe around their family and are able to relax at home when they are surrounded by their family. The usual family structure for immigrants consists of a two-parent household and can also include relatives like aunts, uncles, and grandparents, as well as non-relatives. This idea of a multi-generational family living under one small house is known as overcrowding in the homes of immigrants. While this may seem odd to outsiders, it is natural for some families. Children are expected to care for ill parents or to take care of a family friend in time of need. This is also known as familismo among the Latino culture. Familismo is a strong sense of duty, loyalty, and responsibility to care for one's own family. The idea of familismo is that it is a support system and a protective force against drug and alcohol abuse and psychological stress. Poverty is prominent in immigrant families and can be related back to lower education levels of the parents, language barriers, and low job skills or unemployment. On the other hand, within the group of native-born families, poverty is more often associated with single-parent households. Family for immigrants isn't always limited to the nuclear family, whether the immigrant traveled alone or in a group. They naturally migrate and create connections with similar immigrants. Familismo is seen across several cultural groups and extends from nuclear to extended family members. It is now also being seen as a way to protect against drug abuse and alcohol abuse. In summary, you now know the difference between the melting pot and the tossed salad theory in regards to immigration and assimilation. America is no longer focused on being the melting pot, but instead a good, healthy tossed salad. Multiculturalism is the future of America and will determine how we help immigrants and refugees. As the future trench workers, we have to pay extra attention on cultural differences and take into account how assimilation has affected today's immigrant adults. Thank you.
Son mis talleres, la vida es un estudio desde que se nace hasta que se muere. Así crucé para el norte buscando buena vida, componente vacío de materia consumida. Dejé a mi abuela sola para besarle el culo a Ronald McDonald y tomar Coca-Cola. Todos somos ilegales. Todos somos ilegales. Todos somos ilegales.